Hey, we're on. Okay, cool. Great, guys. I'm getting ready to contact my friend Debbie Calton, and we're going to get started in just a little bit. Let me just get this Zoom link here, um, and we'll be right back in just a few seconds, a few minutes, whatever. And we are going to continue on with our stuff here. Debbie. Okay, I sent to Debbie Calton. And of course, you're listening to Paul Starling on, of course, Hamilton Radio. Where else? The indie artists always are great here. And Debbie should be joining us in a little bit. Oh, it looks like I lost my arm, didn't it? It's the blue screen, guys. Blue screen does that. I look like I got amputated arms. It's kind of not funny, but scary in a way. Ooh, Halloween. My arm's completely gone. Look, wow, crazy. But anyway, I digress. This is actually, we're going to be doing this show with Debbie Calton, my friend from music. God, she's been doing this. She's been doing this a long time. She's been doing this a real long time. And when we get her thoughts on the music today compared to yesterday, and we're just going to chit chat and talk about her, rise from station to station and where she ended up, and we're just going to have fun. We're going to enjoy the conversation. We're going to, I hope I'm going to be able to promote her as well. I want to try to do that. But yeah, this is going to be really fun. I love talking to friends that I may see, but I don't really get a chance to talk to. I comment every now and then, and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, cool, commenting. But that's okay, right? You don't have to please everybody. And you got to start everywhere. So we're gonna do this, guys, and I'll be also. I feel like Porky Pig. I will be able to. Let me slow that down a little bit. I will be able to take questions, comments, suggestions from you guys. And we're waiting for Debbie. When Debbie comes in, we'll talk to her. So please, if you have any comments or suggestions, please send them my way. I'll also be doing a watch party on this. Let's see, we're going to do a watch party on this. So we do a watch party. I'm doing this watch party. Give me a second, guys. And I'll be talking to my friend Todd Medina in a little bit after this too. Todd is a spirituality person, a great guy. And shout out to my friend Chuck Bushbeck. We were just talking. We'll connect at once. She says, that's perfect, Deb. Thank you. No problem. Me, I'm always kind of early and make sure everything runs good, but that's okay. I'm good. I know. I forgot what I was doing, guys. I'm sorry. It happens to us as we get older. It happens to us as we get older. It does happen. Yes. And take this, and we're going to do a start watch party. So you have both. You have the watch party, and you also have the other thing. So you guys can share the watch party, whatever you want to do. I've got the music on in the background. We can talk. Of course, the music you're hearing is from music artists that Home of the Radio always plays, but this is a Halloween playlist. So when we go live, we're also going to be live on the radio and live on Facebook and live on YouTube. That's what we're going to do. So Chuck, if you're watching, this is pretty much what we do live. This is how we do it. But this is my home off. This is my home studio. This is not our live studio at the studio. So if you want to see my live studio at the studio in live action, suggest you tune in tonight to about 6:30. Look for Home of the Radio's page, or also look on my DJ Danny's page, Danny Piro's page. She's going to be interviewing Justin Guarini. Of course, he's from American Idol, and he's been in movies, and he's also doing a lot of great stuff. So we will be she will be interviewing him and talking to him. And basically that's it. So let me get a drink of water, get ready for Deb coming on, Debbie Calton. I know Deb's probably, I don't want to say her age. I don't, but I've been listening to her since I was a kid, or until she came to FM radio here in, I'm in New Jersey. So came to FM radio in Philadelphia. I'm going to have to say, God, I remember her definitely in the early 80s. Not sure exactly the years. I mean, Andre Gardner and I were, again, friends years ago. And I don't know if I ever called Debbie. I may have called her and requested songs or something like that. I don't remember, because that's too long of a time to remember. But excuse me, it could be. It definitely could be. Hold on a second here. It's a good. This is voice teacher and great vocalist, our friend Joe Weimer. Great music Joe can perform and do. So Facebook has a little bit delayed on people as far as music or comments. I noticed the comment section on the Zoom is a lot slower than the comment section on, say, StreamYard or something like that. I mean, it's all good, but it's just, that's the way it is. Got a great voice. Joe Weimer. Joe Weimer's got a great voice. We saw her years ago with a bunch of other people. I forget who it was. A bunch of different people there. We lose people. Unfortunately, we lose people in the radio industry when people find other people to hook up with, or music-wise, or whatever. And even though that we have a good listener base, you know, there's always something there that somebody doesn't like, and that's fine. You don't have to like everything we do. You don't. You really don't have to like it all. But just respect the fact that we're still in this industry. Respect the fact that the music is still incomparable. It's just amazing. I listen to some of these artists. I'm like, why isn't this person mainstream? Why isn't this person mainstream? And my brain can't wrap around that they should be. My brain can't wrap around that, you know, music's music. Doesn't matter who performs it or how they do it. And I mean, I have a heart and soul with classic rock. That's my go-to. But I also like oldies. I like the doo-wops. I like the oldies. I like doo-wop. I like rock. I like a little bit of everything. That's kind of what this station reflects. You know, the different stuff. And these shows that I do represent that. And the music I do represents that. I try to play the local artists that don't get played all the time. And I try to play the music that you're not going to hear everywhere. And a lot of these bands that we play on the radio is similar, very similar to what classic rock radio plays, or pop radio, or oldies radio. That's why people prefer us over a lot of other radio stations, for the fact that we do a lot more for them. We not only provide that, we provide honesty, truth, and a lot of great talk shows. A lot of stations do try to do that. A lot of stations do try to play music, and I'm going to give them a lot of credit for doing that. I really do. But I've been doing this for 25 years, going on to 26 years, with no stopping. And why I think that's amazing compared to some other stations that only started maybe a year ago. Hang in there. You go through tough times. It's still tough. It's tougher with COVID than it ever was. But somehow, some way, we're hanging in there. Somehow, some way, we're still making it happen. You know, we still bring people into the studio. We still do shows. We still bring the celebrities in. We still have sports people getting involved. I think it's just, I think that it's more than just reaching out to somebody, right? This is who we are at this point. We could choose to give money to people that we don't care about, or we can give donations to stations like me anytime you want. You don't have to. I'm never asking you don't have to do that. I appreciate every little thing that you do for us, even if you promote us. I consider a promotion, you know, if you promote the radio station or you promote Hamilton Radio or the other people that I promote, other stations I promote, even FM radio stations. I'm going to even go as far as that. FM and AM radio stations were the front that started everything. But when I started in this in 1996, 97, I never thought it was going to go 25 years. I never thought it was going to go 30 years. I never thought, and that's how true entrepreneurs look at themselves. We only live for today. We live for tomorrow. We live for, you know, the next 6 months, next year, but it could be short-lived. If you're longer than that, obviously you're doing something right. If people listen to you on a basis of an everyday basis and you're like on FM or AM radio, that's great. That's what you want. You want that fan base to get bigger and huge and, you know, and still stay behind you with all this stuff and the music you do. But not everybody's successful at that. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can play that kind of music. Not everybody can have their opinions on a radio station. Just ask some of my friends that go to other radio stations to talk about their businesses or things like that. They shut them off. Oh, we have a problem with your, you know, your connection, or and they could legitimately do. I'm not saying they don't, but it's hit or miss. This is always a guaranteed hit. This is like the stock market, never having to worry about it going down, always going up, always going up, always going up. And that's important, man. I think that's really, really cool. You know, when you do that, I think that when Debbie comes on, we're gonna talk about a lot of the great stuff that she's done over the years. She's did special events. She's did events around Philly. I think she's even did events in New Jersey. Although I've never seen her really live, I still feel like I know her. A personality like Cecily Tynan or Karen Rogers, when they retire, you feel like, that's a broadcast partner. They're friends that do the same thing, and a lot of them don't, or a lot of them do, acknowledge you. And like I said, I want to give a shout out to my friend Chuck Bushbeck. Me and him are working on some kind of things going on right now. Hopefully we can get them solved and get them all set up and working together. I'm reaching out to sponsors, people out there, not only for his show, but for the station as well. Hamilton Radio, like I said, has been around for 25 years, going into the 26th year. Let's make this a better year for not only us, but all the people on the station. Let's make this a banner year for everybody that's going through COVID by, you know, working together to help businesses, venues, places that people don't have no place to play. That's why Hamilton Radio currently is using their studios. We're using our studios for bands. We have a couple bands booked very soon, and we're looking for more bands. If you're a band in the local area of Philly or New Jersey or New York, and you're like, dude, I've got no place to play. I've got no place to bring my music artist. I've got no place to do anything. Well, I'm telling you, we're still open. So give me a call, talk to me, text me, email me. My email is still admin@hamiltonradio.net, but my backup email is gdpent1@yahoo.com. I'll even write it in the comments here so you know. My email is admin@hamiltonradio.net. We still use that because I still have people that send me stuff there. But my backup email is gdpent1@yahoo.com. Now, again, I am not saying that I am the best. I would never say I'm the best radio station. I don't know how people can say I am the best. Really? You don't realize there's like 40 million other radio stations out there that claim that they're the best. I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm the best at what I do. I'm the best at marketing of what I do. I'm not saying that I'm the best of everything. I can't be. Nobody can be. In reality, you're only as good as you think you are. But music is what's important to me. Oh, here comes Deb now. Let's see if she's coming on. Let me admit her. Deb coming in. Hi, Deb.
Hey there, Gene. How you doing?
Oh my God, it's such a pleasure to talk to you on this day. I mean, I'm really excited about this because ever since I was a kid, I used to listen to you. Isn't that crazy? I'm 59.
So I raised you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, you, Andre Gardner, and all FM radio molded me to where I am today.
That's lovely to hear. I love hearing that. And I do hear it, from back in the YSP days, because obviously we're going back. I mean, I started at YSP in 83. So it's wonderful. And that's obviously a number of decades between then and now. So we've grown up.
I feel like one of your children.
Mama Deb. Yep, that's me. Well, I find it kind of interesting too, that back then the music was still new, and now, of course, it's classic rock.
I know. Well, but that's another thing I want to talk to you about. That's why I want to start us in about 7 minutes. But I want to ask you. No, I don't want to dish dirt. I don't ever dish dirt. I just want everybody to know that. I'm a follower. I love you. I love what you've done. I love where you've been. I love where you're going. And I am so in awe of everything that you've done that I want to get your opinion on certain things. Like, where's classic rock going? I mean, in the 70s, classic rock was classic rock, but then the 80s came, and then hair bands and everything else became classic rock. And as we went into the 90s, everybody said, well, that's not classic rock. 90s is so I'm so confused. And I'm not saying the bands aren't good. I won't ever say that. I'm just saying there's certain bands that I consider classic rock, but that's because I'm older.
Yeah. Well,
so when you look at that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely evolved. It's a constant evolution.
Actually,
yeah. When I was still at MGK, and like 10 years ago or whatever, when we first started playing, like Guns N' Roses, for instance, when we first started playing, people, oh, that's not classic rock. They're
right.
And then of course later on, Pearl Jam, oh no, that's not classic rock. That's 90s or whatever. But it can be included in there because obviously there is a major influence of the classic rock bands with those bands, and I think a lot of what makes them really good is also this timeless appeal. You just know that some bands are going to be around forever, and
just like the Stones.
yeah, exactly, right. And Stone's still putting out music.
I still can't believe it.
Yeah. Well, I thought that Living in a Ghost Town was actually really good. That came out earlier this year, and before the pandemic too, which I thought was very interesting. Or they had recorded it before the pandemic. I thought was very interesting because it spoke to the times. But yeah, I think there's a timeless quality to a lot of these bands. I mean, there are some, like as you were talking about, hair bands that could come and go, but I think there are some that will stay and that deserve to be included in that whole classic rock thing. It's an expanding border. What I hate seeing is that I think a lot of the earlier part of that border gets sort of excised, that we're losing a lot of the 60s bands that were included in classic rock. Yeah, it seems to be like sort of moving, and that means, okay, so the 60s go away and then it starts at the 70s. I think that those 60s bands still absolutely deserve to be included in this whole, again, continuing evolution of classic rock.
So sad because, you look at guys like, I know Vince Martell from Vanilla Fudge, and I'm sure you might know him too. Great guy, wonderful guy. He's been in our studio many times. But the thing is, they don't even play You've Got Me Hanging On.
Unless it's a
It's
special
like when you call them up, they're like, wait a minute,
yeah.
I know the song, but I don't think we have it anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
they're very, very nice and they're pleasant and all. Not your station, I'm saying other stations and
right.
in
But
general.
yeah, but again, I think that's considered now like it's a special. If you have a special weekend, then
Yeah,
hear that
yeah,
included, like the Lost Classics or whatever. And of course, back then, I mean, that song was played on the radio quite a bit. It's the same thing like Jefferson Airplane and I mean, the Kinks still have a pretty good foothold, I think.
right.
But there's still so many other songs that could be played besides Lola, which is a 70s song, and You Really Got Me, and that sort of thing. So I mean, but again, commercial classic rock has got to be formatted, because there's a lot of money riding on it. So uh I, I would always get these phone calls from people. Why can't you play this? Why can't you play that?
No,
There's a lot of research, and there are formulas, that go into making stations more popular, widespread. And I mean, ratings and stuff like that is a very
absolutely.
important
It's
part of the
crazy.
thing. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I started out years ago with Andre Gardner at WPST in Trenton because I'm in New Jersey. And we worked overnight and stuff like that. And then after that, I got out of the business and I just went to do something else because I didn't see any money in it. But I still stuck it out and did other things. And then when classic rock, I noticed some stations, and I'm not saying yours, but some stations were playing the same stuff over and over and over. And I'm like, oh, there's so much great stuff out there.
Yeah.
Why are you playing the same songs?
Yeah.
And I understand what you're saying is about you have to, what people listen to, what they want to hear. And, and then there's that thing like, but you're missing so many great songs on the albums that these guys performed and made that it's just horrible not to play them,
Yeah.
so many albums had so many songs on them.
Well,
A lot of them were hits.
I was just going to say that's a whole different thing about these times now too, is that people don't listen to whole albums anymore. I mean, we did. I can hear.
I still do.
Yeah, I hear one song in an album and it triggers like what the next song is going
Right.
to be.
Yep.
You already hear it like on Sergeant Pepper's. It's already know which song is coming next.
In sequence. Yep.
But everything is sort of a la carte listening these days, and particularly with younger people, that they don't know the joy of tracking an entire album. And of course, this is way old fashioned, but like going up and turning your album over, and flipping to the second side. It's all about immediate gratification. And if you don't like a song, then you don't have to hear it, and it's a shame because all of those albums told and still tell stories,
Right.
and sometimes you need to listen to all of it to get the whole story. So
well, the best part, and I agree with me or don't disagree with me, but the best part of listening to a song that was either by you was your introduction to the song or something, a little tidbit that you knew about the music. That's like, oh, I didn't know that. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. And I miss that today. I don't think it's there as much because I know a lot of DJs, they'll either go on Wikipedia or they'll do Google and search and whatever, and then they'll get a little information. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But the thing is, if you truly know what you're talking about a song or about the person in the group or a person that went from that group to another group, that's great information that sometimes you can't really find it anywhere.
Yeah.
Places.
No, I agree with you. So we've just recently moved to New York. We're in near Catskill, New York, about half an hour north of Woodstock. And there are a couple of stations up here, and I won't give out call letters, but the music is great. But I find that they don't really talk about the music, and that's what I miss. And I have to say that was probably the biggest challenge working at MGK, but I loved it because, you are playing a lot of the same songs. There is certainly a repetition because it has to be, because it's formatted. But being able to come up with something different each time that you play one of those songs, or thinking, because like say, wow, I never listened to that little guitar bit there, or I never noticed that there was this solo or whatever,
Right.
Or like maybe reading something or just being reminded about something, like the way you felt the first time you heard that song. That is what kept the music fresh, even though it was songs that we had played every single day for however many years, that's what I like too. And I have to tell you, that's what people tell me the most is like, and I still like have a lot of my MGK listeners as Facebook followers or whatever, but they'll say, I miss the stories. I miss you talking
Yeah,
about,
absolutely.
And to me, that's the most exciting part of playing that music.
All right, so let me get started because I know we didn't get started. We're talking. Right. Sorry. Oh, okay. Let me get started. Let me record this. This is so great. This is awesome. All right, make sure everything's working. Okay, we are. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Doc G, and of course I'm presenting my friend Debbie Calton, who's been on a lot of FM radio stations in Philadelphia. I grew up with this lady. I mean, she formed my teenage adulthood with the music that she presented. And welcome, Debbie.
Well, thank you, Gene. Or do I say Doc G?
Doc G, that's fine. Anything. Anything is fine.
Actually, so it's kind of funny. I was only on 2 radio stations in Philadelphia. Most people presume that I was also, because I was on YSP for 10 years. And then I was on MGK for 26, 27 years, whatever. And most people think that I was on MMR just because I heard that. I
don't remember her on MMR, but maybe I'm wrong.
I was not on MMR, no. And I wasn't on IOQ either, which a lot of times people presume, but I think that's just because they remember me back into the early 80s.
Right.
And there was a lot of crossover between MMR and YSP and sometimes IOQ as well. So I'm 36, 37 years in Philadelphia.
God bless you. God bless you, my dear. You, like I said, you formed our life, through the music that you played. I want to ask you, how did you decide to become a DJ? What was the pivoting point that you really like saying, I want to be a DJ. I don't want to, do this, I want to do this.
Well, it was kind of an accident. I loved music. I was actually in college, Guilford College, Greensboro, North Carolina. And I wanted to take off a semester and I wanted my parents to still send me money. So I started sending off for all these different brochures for different kinds of schools. And one of those was a broadcasting school. And so I went there but I never thought about being a DJ. I just thought I like music.
Oh, okay.
And maybe it'd be a fun thing to learn, and a fun thing to do because I was involved a little bit with a college radio station. So I went to the broadcasting school, which turned out to be a complete bust. They were antiquated. They had gotten into some legal trouble, all this. But at any rate, it got me into Charlotte, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And where I started knocking on doors of radio stations, I thought, well, as long as I'm committed to go, to this broadcast school, I might as well try to actually get some hands-on experience. So I literally went and knocked on doors and found this little AM daytime radio station where you the switch goes on at sunrise, switch goes on at sunset. Right. It was a really cool station. It was like a college station. It was like wide open. The format was anything goes. And WRPL were the call letters. Radio with balls. That was our motto. And I still have the poster. And so I volunteered to write copy, excuse me, to get coffee, to do anything, just anything behind the scenes. Nice. And so they had me doing this, they had me doing that. And then one day, somebody said, hey, we think you'd be pretty good on the air. And I'm like, oh my God, no. I never even thought about that. I had my voice. I had a real Southern accent. But I tried it.
Where are you from, by the way?
Well, my family's from North Carolina, but my dad was in the Air Force, so we moved everywhere. But at that point, because I'd been going to school in North Carolina, I had developed a Southern accent. When I listen to those tapes back now, it's like, yeah. But anyway, so they pushed me into trying, to doing a shift on the air. And then before I knew it, I was doing mornings. It was like out of the blue. And then I was there for 2 years. I ended up becoming music director and then eventually program director. I mean, I got my hands-on experience. So I got way more out of that, obviously, than my broadcast school tenure. And then I never went back to college. I mean, I just stayed there. And it's so funny because for years, for like 20, 25 years after that, my parents kept saying, Deborah, when are you going back to school? It's like, well, I kind of have a career now. So, I doubt if I'm going to be going back to school. But I will say that being at Guilford College, because and the radio station there was really, really cool, WQFS, that's kind of started the seed and that this might be a fun thing to learn about, but I
right.
never expected to make it my career. I was going to
No,
be a writer, a newspaper writer. I was an English major.
right.
I was a French minor, so maybe I was going to be a translator. So, going into radio was, I had never really even thought about doing that.
Yeah, and you know what? And it's funny too, because a lot of people that when they talk, their voice is so different on the radio. Your voice is all alike what you sound like on the radio.
Well, I never changed
No,
anything.
I know, but that's what I tell people is what I always tell people is, especially people that come to us, it says, be yourself. Don't change who you are, because when you go out, people will hear you. They'll know who you are, unless you're trying to get an anonymity going.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you're a real person, and you don't ever change it. You're so down to earth, and you're caring, and you can see that smile when you introduce your music, which I think attracts people in to listen to the song and like, you know what, that was a real good song. It's still the same song by anybody, but because you did it, it was a special song.
Well, that's really nice. Thank you. Well, like I said, I think because I didn't really set out to be a DJ, I didn't know how to, I didn't need to put on anything. Now, again, it is funny because like I said, when I was in North Carolina, I had the Southern accent. And I think every town because I did sort of do a progression of towns. I became a radio gypsy after that stint in North Carolina.
That happens to everybody broadcasting.
Well, yeah, right. And I think that my accent slightly changed to adapt to each place that I was. Like,
Right.
I was in Chicago for a couple of years, and when I came to Philadelphia, somebody says, "Oh, you have such a Chicago accent." I'm like, "Really? Wow, I never would have thought that."
Right.
And after a while in Philadelphia, people would say, "Oh, you have such a Philadelphia accent." I'm like, "Well, I don't really hear that either." But I think that's a subtle thing that's not even, I never try to change it. You just sort of adapt to the colloquialisms of what city you're in, and also you start saying water instead of water.
Oh yeah, everybody does that. They make that colloquialisms all the time. That's
Yeah,
a big deal.
so
So your first job was at WYSP or no?
in Philadelphia, you mean?
Yeah, Philadelphia. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, YSP. So that was an interesting thing. Speaking of Chicago, our station there was sold, and everybody ended up either getting fired or quit. And I was the very last holdout at that radio station. My union told me, just keep hanging on by your fingernails because they'll have to pay you severance, at some point. So I was the very
Right.
last one that they tried putting me on all different kinds of shifts. They cut my shifts and everything. So finally, they did let me go, and I had a little bit of severance money. So I went on vacation to Florida. But then when I came back, I knew I had to get a job somewhere. And so I've been sending out quite a few resumes, and BCN in Boston was one of the stations I had reached out to. And several of the people I worked with in Chicago had gone to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, let me just go and check out Philadelphia and see what that's all about. So I had an interview scheduled with Charlie Kendall at WMMR. And I flew in, and then he had been called away on some business or whatever. So, and again, this is 1983, and that rivalry between MMR and YSP was huge back then.
Oh yeah.
So
it was always there.
my friends, I had friends who were working at YSP, and when they told then program director at YSP, Mike Cozy, that I was in town to interview at MMR, he's like, "Come over here. We'll hire you on the spot," just because of that competition. So that's how, because so I could have ended up at MMR. I mean, that was the intention at first, but I ended up at YSP, which was fine by me. I mean, it worked out great. I went in there working as a promotions assistant and doing a Sunday shift, Sunday night shift. And then as program directors came and went, my role started to expand more there. I actually became the promotions director for a while.
Okay.
And then a program director came in, and John Roberts, and he put me on the air. And then Andy Bloom came in and put me in middays. And so things just, things just evolved for me there. And again, I went through a number of program directors there and was able to stick it out for 10 years until another program director decided he wanted to change everything. And so,
I hate that.
yeah, Shockey and I both got it the same weekend. Anyway, but that's how I came to Philadelphia.
Yeah, and the other issue, of course, what motivates people is either the station closes or it changes format.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been on stations where it went to country, and I'm like, well, I don't know too much about country, but I learned. You're a quick learner. You learn to adapt, and I think that's part of being a broadcaster, you got to learn to, be flexible, be maneuverable, movable. Some guys are, some guys aren't, some women are, some aren't.
Yeah.
But I think, through YSP, I remember the first night you had, because I always used to listen to it. And I think that shows loyalty to the station. It shows your credibility to the station, because you're listening and you get to hear new people coming in, which is like, oh, wow, isn't she awesome? And I think that it also is a tribute to you, for the people that heard that, your first day is just as good as well, not as good as your last day, because your last day is hard on you and hard on your family around you that listen.
And I didn't know
consider us family. I really do.
At YSP, I did not know my last day was going to be my last day either. They had the guy waiting for me in the wings.
It happens.
That happens. Yeah. Luckily, I mean, you're talking about having to adapt to different formats and all of that. I didn't have to do that too much in my career. I did once in Florida, where I had been working at a rock station, and then they had made a massive staff change, and so after that I just needed to scramble and find a job. So I was working at like not quite easy listening, but like an MOR station, middle of the road station.
Right.
And that was kind of foreign to me, because I was playing music I really didn't know a whole lot about. But I did that just sort of as a bridge until I could get into another rock station.
Right.
And then, of course, when I went to MGK, they had been they'd been that magic format, that same kind of middle of the road format. And when I first got the call to possibly come over and interview for that, I had never really listened to MGK that much, and so I tuned in and I heard Delilah.
Well, this is before they went classic rock, or after they went?
This is way before, because this is when they were still doing, Delilah was still on the air
there. Harvey was there?
He was still there. And so I was listening to Delilah. I was like, oh my God, I don't think I can do that. And so then I called Andy Bloom, was the guy who was working in the greater media hierarchy, and I worked under him. He had put me on middays at YSP. And anyway, he said, no, don't worry, the station is going to be having a format change. So what we have in mind is something that you're going to be able to do. So they actually brought me in during their greatest hits of the 70s phase. It had started off with Mike Bowe doing a Saturday night dance show, and they were playing that. And then they decided to expand that as a full format. So that was really fun, actually, because you were playing bands like Chic, next to Joni Mitchell, next to Pablo Cruz, next to, it was just like, if it was released in the 70s, it was getting played all together. And then eventually that evolved into classic hits of the 70s, and then into oh God, it wasn't classic rock right away. I forget, but it evolved several different, directions, and eventually ended up, or classic hits for a while. That's what it was. And then eventually classic rock. So, so I stayed there during the duration of that. So I had to adjust a little bit there, because that format was a little bit foreign to me. I didn't really know a whole lot about some of the bands.
Right.
Like, you were playing, like Billy Don't Be a Hero and songs like but it was kind of fun, just because it was very different.
Yeah, and that's the other problem too with some formats too, because either you like the format. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. You either like the format.
Is that you or me doing that?
That's me.
All right, because I know I had some things popping through.
No, I just turned the ringer off. The format sometimes it is rough, because you can go from classic rock to Christian, and I'm not downing anybody or saying like that, but I don't know any Christian artists. Right. I know some.
There was one time in Charlotte. So after I left that first radio station, WRPL, again, I was sort of scrambling to find something in the meantime. And so I don't forget if it was University of Charlotte or whatever, but I went to a classical radio station. I lasted one day.
Yeah,
first of all, trying to pronounce the names, I'm like, I don't know.
That's funny, Deb. That is
Yeah,
funny.
and I thought, yeah, this is. I mean, because I thought, oh, radio. I've been doing radio for 2 years. I can do this. And I realized, because people were calling up, "What are you doing? You're butchering the names." And and you do need to kind of have a little bit of a background about that kind of music, And so, yeah, I just one day. But again, I think I've been very, very lucky, all in all, because I have stayed pretty much in rock radio the entire time.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it was new when I first started playing it. Now it's classic, and some would even say oldies, although I sort of cringe at that term.
I know.
But I've been very lucky that for the most part, and so I do have like a deep range of information about not only this music but about the artist too, because I've grown, as we all have, we've grown up with these artists as well. So.
Well, you know what I noticed too over the years, being that I own my own station, right? And I've been doing it for 25, going to 26 years. So you got to be doing something right if you've been around that long, right? So I like to do different things. I like to do themes. I like to do, like just pick out a word like lights. And, you got a song from Journey, and then you got a song from somebody else and somebody else.
I love doing that. I love doing thematic shows.
Right. But a lot of stations won't allow you to do that. See, when you have your own station, you have the ability to do whatever you want. You eliminate all the red tape, and the listeners really appreciate it. I'm not saying that what I'm doing is perfect for everybody, because it probably isn't. But what I try to do is give that alternative thing that other people can't do. Because I don't blame the station for what they do. They're tied into corporate, and corporate is controlling them and saying this is what you have to do, and they're basing it on their listener and fan base and everything like that. I get all that, but what makes you truly like a renegade type of thing is, and by the way, I'm friends with Tommy Shaw from Styx, and I had to bring that up because Tommy always checks in every now and then and watches my lives. And I'm sure you have celebrities that check in with you every now and then and, say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? And I think that's really cool when you see that, because I never thought internet was going to allow us to do that, but I'm closer to some of my idols.
It actually makes things more intimate. I mean, at first people are like, oh, the internet, it alienates everybody. It's like, no, it makes it more immediate, that people, like, if you tag somebody and then they reach out, it's like, hey, two funny things, or two stories here about things. So you mentioned Tommy Shaw. When I was working in Chicago in promotions, and Styx, of course, very, very big, in Chicago. And our promotions director, his name is Jim Corboy, very good friends with Styx and their management and with Tommy. We actually came up with a promotion where Tommy and I were supposed to get married on stage, like a mock ceremony on stage.
Oh, really?
It's kind of funny because he and I are about both the same height. It's almost like a Tom Thumb wedding. But
yeah.
For whatever reason, that never got pulled off. So
that's cool.
But it was in the works. And then secondly, you were talking, about these themes. And it is what I was doing at MGK. And actually, they still have the feature called Connect 3.
Yeah.
You have 3 songs, that are connected in some way, and people have to guess. And I'm not really allowed to divulge too much information, but I'm doing an online radio thing right now, which hasn't been publicly launched yet. But what I have been doing for that, and I can take shows wherever I am, I have been doing themes, like hour-long themes. And it's been so much fun because there's a lot of music out there that ties together, but not necessarily that everybody would think about.
Right.
Right. And so it requires actually quite a bit of research, which is very engaging. I love that because it sends you down a rabbit hole that maybe, oh, there's a song I didn't remember. I didn't think about that. It could tie in with this theme.
Right.
And so much fun. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, let me know when you get it done, because maybe I could I'll put it on Alder A. I don't have a problem putting it on this station. I love, because like I said, I control this and run this. I can do whatever.
You're the man. You're the big man. So yeah. Hopefully in the next month or two, I'll be able to share more information about that. But
that's great.
It's not even 2 turntables and a microphone. It's an iPad and a microphone.
Hey, you do what you have to do. You know?
But it's really fun, and that has been something that has kept me engaged somewhat since I retired back in December, which has been a very busy time since then, actually. But it's been a thing that's kept me connected, to the music and the industry.
Now, this is going to be a hard question, Deb. Who are some of your favorite artists not only then when you played, you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to see them.
Well, Led Zeppelin, but we'll never be seeing them again, I don't think. I actually had the opportunity to see Led Zeppelin several times. One time, I had tickets in North Carolina when I was still in college. And a friend of mine was coming back from Vietnam and he really wanted to see Led Zeppelin. So I gave him my ticket. So I missed out on them then. That would have been, I don't know, 72, I forget what year it was, early 70s. Then there was another time when I was working in radio in Tampa and they were playing an outdoor gig and all of a sudden, and they were just starting, just getting ready to start. And this thunderstorm came through and lightning and everything. So complete chaos. And of course they had to cancel that show. Right. So I missed out on them then. I saw them at Live Aid, but which is not quite the same because you don't have, you don't have Bonham anymore, but it was still thrilling to see them there. But yeah, Led Zeppelin from the get-go, absolutely one of my favorite bands. Everybody always equates me with Jackson Browne. I love Jackson. I've seen him.
Jackson's a great guy. Yeah,
a million times. So I don't know what's amazing to me is that like a lot of the bands, like I was mentioned Jefferson Airplane earlier, a lot of the bands that I was in love with when I was just like an 11 or 12-year-old Debbie, Creedence Clearwater Revival, my favorite band. From back in the day, the very first concert I ever went to see when I was 11 or 12. I ended up meeting all those people, which was like this, like you were just saying, people reaching out to you because of the internet. I mean, that was like, wow, now I work in an industry where they actually want to come on and do interviews or they want me to play their new record or whatever, which was just oh so cool. I was in awe when I met Grace Slick. And the same thing, like Tom Petty too, from the beginning, like I loved Tom Petty and the fact that I got to interview him and talk to, it was just mind boggling to me. So and I always love to see Tom Petty in concert too.
Surreal. I just talked to David Payton. I don't know if you remember him. He was from the Pilot, and also he was with Alan Parsons Project. He started on the very first one, Tales of Mystery and Imagination, all the way up to, I think he said Stereotomy, which was one of his last ones. And then he did 6 years with Elton John. And I said, I didn't know that. And he's like, oh yeah, Elton still emails me Christmas cards and stuff like that. But he had a new album coming out and he's like, I can't get this album out nowhere. No radio stations want to play me because a lot of people don't know who I am.
Yeah.
Do you always I feel bad for the bands or the members of the bands because people don't really know the member. They only know the band. And it's really sad that guys like that's so creative and music wise and the music, translates to everybody, just can't get their music played. And I feel so bad for them. And I'm like, what can we do to get this music out? How do you feel about that? I mean, isn't that sad?
I think that, it is. I think this is another instance, though, where the internet works really well because at least, there were times when I was at MGK and I'd be interviewing somebody and it's like, this is a shame because I can't play this person's music. They had something. So it's at least good to be able to interview somebody and then put the interview up on my website or the station's website or, my Facebook page or whatever. At least that's something that can be
exposure, right?
We didn't have that kind of outlet before the internet was invented, so I think that that's good and it's still viable. And also what I was able to do at MGK, I could say, like if I played, say, the Alan Parsons Project, and even though I couldn't play David's music, I could say, but hey, I have an interview on my website, and so you can go to that. So you could still sort of wedge it in, even if you couldn't play the music there. If you want to know more about this guy, go there. So there was still some, you had creative ways to get some of these people exposure. But I know it's really tough. I mean, of course, right now it's tough for everybody, because they can't get out there and back up their music with tours. They can't get out and play right now.
COVID is destroying. I got to tell you, in New Jersey here, you're in New York, but in New Jersey here, it's destroying most of the business, friends, revenues, venues that we're friends with, people. I mean, we were working with a company called Recreation Concerts, and their last huge concert we were actually going to do with them, but it was going to be Jimi Hendrix, the guys dressed up as Jimmy, all the details, I mean, if you looked at it, you would say, oh my God, this is Jimi Hendrix.
Is it Jimmy Blue as Jimmy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know him. I know Jimmy. Yeah.
There you go. See?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He also does, I think, Al Green, and he also does, I think, Carlos Santana.
Uh-huh.
And that's the guy. And amazing.
Yeah, he's
amazing
good.
guitarist. He looks just like him. Yeah, that's him. His name is, I remember that name.
Well, and actually, so that's a good example, because when I interviewed him a number of times at MGK, and of course I couldn't play him on the radio,
Right.
but I could play Jimi Hendrix and say, hey, if you want to know more about this guy who does a killer Jimi Hendrix,
That's right.
Go to the website, listen, and I could also tag, or post a performance from him, and that people could hear the interview. So again, sort of a
creative way. That's beautiful, but not everybody does that. Andre and you do that. Maybe a couple other people do it, but not everybody does that. And the problem is, it's not just one station. Look at every station in every city, in every state. And if you're just the one, yeah, that's great. But it's not like it used to be like in the 70s or the 80s.
Yeah, no, because then you can have somebody just walk in the studio. You can just have somebody walk in the studio and sit down and turn on their mic and just go for it, which was, things have certainly changed. Now, you're talking about live performances, and specifically in Jersey. So my husband, Chip Roberts, and the guy that he plays with in his duo called Cowboys in the Campfire.
Okay.
Tommy Stinson, I don't know the name. He was in he's the bass player in Guns N' Roses for like 18 years.
Okay, well, Gilby Clarke. We know Gilby.
Okay, yeah, the band, The Replacements. At any rate, they've got this little duo, Cowboys in the Campfire. And so they weren't able to go out, as most musicians couldn't, for many, many months. About a month and a half ago, they did a couple of shows up in Buffalo, outdoor, socially distanced, responsible, right. Temperatures taken. And they're actually doing a show in New Jersey this Saturday, are coming up, but it's an outdoor, it's in somebody's backyard show.
Right.
But it's hard because, when it starts getting colder, it's going to be harder to do these outdoor shows.
Yeah. And
there's going to have to be a whole new template, not just for them, but for any touring musician, about how they're going to go about doing this. Because even now, it's still kind of scary when you're around people that you don't really know where they've been. I mean, where you're used to, they would do all these meet and greets and I
know.
And all that.
I get it. Yeah, I know.
You can't do all that anymore.
I get it. And that's kind of why, in a way, just kind of front myself for a little bit. In a way, we're trying to open up our studios to bands like that, because if we can get bands like that in there to promote themselves, record themselves, record them, of course, on Facebook, and then they can put it on YouTube for promotion, and then sell their tickets, or say, like we were trying, like Eventbrite, maybe $5, but we can get, because we're literally all over the world, right? I started the station in 96, 97. So our reach is all over the world, plus with a lot of major troops all over the world as well. So we reach out a lot further than just the average radio station.
Right.
And I could be a big help to a lot of these bands, because our studio is clean. Our studio is in Robbinsville. And we don't have a lot of shows coming in, so there's not a lot of people coming in. And when we do, between shows, we clean. We do, the wipes and stuff. Like, neither one of us had COVID. None of me and my partner, and nobody in the stations had COVID. So we're very, very clean, healthy, and we offer this to the bands to come in to help promote them, and at the same time promote us.
Yeah. So, I think that's going to be probably the way to the future. Again, because for those who live and would be touring where it gets cold, there's only so far into the season that you can continue to play outside, in an open air thing. So yeah, I think that, and again, that has been one thing with this pandemic, to see the coping mechanisms that a lot of people have had to go through, and the out of the box thinking about, so how do we keep doing this? How do we keep selling music, or how do we keep selling merch and all that kind of stuff to come up, has made a lot of people be extremely creative. And although certainly the industry has taken a hit, but that there are ways that you can still get your music out there and get exposure.
Right. And we're not dead yet, right? We're not
dead yet.
No, I mean as far.
Monty
No,
Python.
I don't mean as people. I mean as far as the industry.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
the music industry's there. You know, I just got a message from Patti Smythe that she just did an album. She didn't do an album in 28 years. You know, she was with Warrior as Scandal.
Yep.
And Patti Smythe's been around for years, you know, married John McEnroe.
Right.
But she just released an album, 28 years.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and a lot of the songs are equivalent to what COVID is about. So it's a lot of relatable stuff.
Right. Yeah. I have a feeling we're going to hear a lot of songs about loneliness and alienation, solitude.
Yeah, sitting at Dunkin' Donuts by yourself. I just got a thing from another friend too. He said that Fox Studios in Philadelphia is closed. It's been closed, going to be closed for a while, and they're looking for another venue. And I'm like, well, we're right here, so.
Huh. Well, I know that Sue Serio has been doing her show from home. I mean, her part of the morning show from home, because she posts something every day about documenting her days, you know, out from her patio or in her living room. But I hadn't heard that the whole studio was closed.
Yeah, he said the whole studio was closed. As far as he can't go in there, he might be able to go in there and do something, but who's going to engineer it? Who's going to run it? Who's going to see? I do all that.
Yeah. Well, I went into MGK not quite a month ago, because there was an award that was given by the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters for the last month that I did on the air for the 30 Days of Debbie.
I saw that.
Yeah. So it was really great that they invited me to come back in to present the award to me. But I hadn't been in the station since December.
Right.
And I wasn't really sure what to expect, you know, because, you know, microphones, you know, being used by other people. And they did limit the number of people in the studio. I think we maybe had 5 or 6 people, including DeBella and his morning show guys.
Right.
But, you know, the offices, there were people in the offices, but they're distant. And when they're going into the common areas, they're wearing their masks and all that sort of stuff. It was interesting to see that, because I'd been out of that since before this whole thing hit, you know, in the workplace. I hadn't seen how they were coping. So, but again, you know, they've managed to figure out how they have to do things. They still conducted promotions. You know, so yeah, like I said earlier, I think it's just like, this is the lot we have to deal with right now. Let's figure out creatively how we can make the most of it.
Well, again, work together. I always look at, like I told Andre, the businesses that work together will succeed together.
Yeah.
Businesses that work apart separately will fail separately, because it look, you're pulling from both sides. You know, you're working as a person trying to make your business better. You're trying to help other people, and at the same time, the other business is doing the same thing. Yeah. But you're not doing it together. If you did it together, that's when you would see maybe more success.
Yeah.
Especially for other people.
Yeah, so true. Well, I think there's
talking about the artists, music artists and stuff like that.
I don't think things are going to change anytime soon, you know, for the better, sadly. I think there's still plenty of opportunity for people to work, to figure out how to work together for all of this stuff and keep the industry alive.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about some of the artists you met over the years. You said you met some people like Tommy Shaw. Who have you met? Pull that memory back and try to think.
A lot.
Who's significant?
Well, David Crosby came into the studio, a live interview for about an hour and a half. Scariest interview I've ever done with him, because he could be a little crotchety.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. But it was still a great interview.
Yeah.
Graham Nash I've met. Jackson Brown many times. You know, Bruce Hornsby. I don't even know. It'd probably be easier to say who
haven't you done?
I never met Eddie Van Halen. I spent some time with Michael Anthony before, but I never met Eddie, and that news was crushing.
What a sweet guy he was. Yeah.
That's what I've heard from all accounts, that he was just super. I don't know. All the guys in George Thorogood's band are close personal friends. You know, there's, I mean, just a lot of people, when you've been in the business for 46 years and you're going backstage and all that kind of stuff, you meet a lot of people, you know? So,
did you meet Eddie Money? Because we met Eddie Money a couple years ago.
Eddie did so many station events. I mean, talk about enthusiasm.
Great guy.
Yeah. I met somebody who I was awestruck, Jaco Pastorius. I met him years ago in a jazz club in New York. That was thrilling for me because I was really into jazz at that time, Weather Report and all
I
of
still
that.
like jazz. I love jazz.
So I almost went on the road with the Pat Metheny band
Nice.
for yeah, as like a bus mother, house mother kind of thing, because my friend was their tour manager and they needed somebody to hand out their per diems and stuff like that. But I didn't end up doing that, but I did meet those guys.
That's nice.
I don't know, a lot of people over the years. Springsteen, one of the majors there. I never met Paul McCartney, but I do have an autographed introducing the Beatles album that Andre got Paul to sign for me.
Right. Oh, here's an interesting tidbit. I talked to somebody yesterday, and I always equate back to who I talked to. The band is called the Pond Hawks. They're a Wings-like band. They've been around for about maybe 15 years. The girl in the band, Jory Grayson, is a good friend of mine. She designed the cover for one of Paul McCartney's albums.
Oh, wow.
And Paul McCartney picked it out of 1,500 people.
That's pretty
And
cool.
I'm like, that is, and he signed it for her and
wow.
invited her to a couple things. And that's why, she's been a Paul McCartney person forever since then. But it was interesting to say, oh, wow, my photo got picked on one of his albums.
That's really cool. Absolutely.
That's when Melinda was around. That's what she told me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely something to be proud about for sure.
Yeah, she was really excited. So yeah, that's amazing. I mean, some of the people that you do meet, a lot of them are so down to earth and nice. I mean, we met Lou Graham for Foreigner, Mick Jones for Foreigner.
Yeah,
they're both down to earth guys.
Oh yeah, we had done several stations that I've worked with did things with Foreigner, and they were both really, really great. That's always wonderful. Nice. Like the guys from Cheap Trick, I always love Cheap Trick. All of them are so much fun, and always really gracious. Rick Nielsen, I remember one time we were doing a thing with him, and he took all of his picks and he pulled out my top and dropped all the picks down. I'm shaking him out. Robin Zander, who I always had such a great crush on.
I does too.
I pulled him inside a bathroom at the Park West in Chicago, like back in the 70s. I was like, I just got to give you a kiss. And he's like, okay. But he was very sweet about it. Later on I thought, well, that was kind of weird for him, but he was really nice about it.
How about this artist? That a lot of people don't think is a rock artist, Rick Springfield?
I met Rick Springfield at one point when I was at YSP. I didn't really spend a lot of time around him, but yeah. And I've loved seeing him doing these acting things that he's done now, in the past 15, 20 years.
Right.
Fun to see him pop up in something. So
yeah, he's awesome. We met him in Atlantic City, and he gave us VIP passes to go back and see him. My wife is a children's book author, and she went absolutely crazy meeting him. She's like, you've been my idol since General Hospital, you've been my idol, how could you not be?
Right, yeah.
So that's great. That's awesome. Well, we got a little bit more time, so let's talk about now I think you like the Beatles, right? You like the Beatles?
Yeah, very much. I mean, I have pictures. Too bad I don't have them with me because I just, moved. And so a lot of things are in boxes still. But I have pictures that I drew of Paul McCartney when I was like, 8 years old. And always loved the Beatles. I mean, back in the day when you anticipated the release of an album, I would always be so excited. Like I remember when I first got the Sgt. Pepper's album, just listening to it with my best friend at the time over and over again. Same thing with Magical Mystery Tour. I still have Beatles 45s. I have one that's printed, the label's printed in Turkish because I lived in Turkey for a couple of years.
Cool.
Yeah, I Beatles fan since 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old. Yeah. Okay,
this is gonna be hard for you. Favorite Beatle album? It's hard for me. I can't say. I love them all.
Wow.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
How about least favorite Beatle album?
Well, no, I can't do that. Definitely, Rubber Soul is definitely a favorite, but also like Beatles 6. The American release. I love, or not 6. Wait, was it 6? Yeah. I think that's what it was called here in the U.S. I love that album. It has it like every little thing on it. Beatles 65. I loved that album too. I wasn't always into like the most popular songs that you would hear on the radio. I liked a lot of the other songs. I particularly loved it when George Harrison would do Carl Perkins and that sort of stuff, you know.
Oh yeah. Covers.
I love Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby and songs like that. So I think it was always sort of a B-side girl anyway, ever since I was young, you know. It's like I'd flip that 45 over and see what was on that side.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. So the music shaped you, right? And what are you doing today? You're retired. You're going to start another show, maybe, and you're just kicking back, relaxing.
Well, I haven't relaxed at all. This whole year was about moving. I moved my parents into assisted living. We moved our son down to Georgia, literally like during the month, like February, you know, right before the pandemic hit. Then we picked him up and brought him back in March because we didn't feel like it was safe for him to be there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We sold 2 houses and bought another. I mean, it's just been all about moving. So finally we're settled down. And like I said, I'm doing this online radio station thing, which I actually can do. I was visiting back in February, again, before the pandemic hit. Our uncle had a place in Key West for a couple of months.
Oh, nice.
So I sat by the pool and recorded my radio show there, which was just really fantastic. So I'm going to continue to do more of that. And then my husband, and as I mentioned, you know, the guy that he's playing with, the Cowboys and the Campfire thing, this will also, not being tied down to an everyday job allows me to go out and see them when they're performing and be a part of some of their projects as well.
Oh,
we're getting ready. We're putting a recording studio into one of our garages that we have here. And also I do stained glass, and I haven't had a chance. Yeah. And I haven't had a chance to work on that much this year. So I'm going to have a stained glass studio to work on that some. And
beautiful.
So, but music will always be a part of everything, because it always was, even before radio, you know, so that doesn't go away, you know, just because I don't have that job anymore.
Yeah, I know. It stays with you no matter where you go, what you do.
Absolutely.
You know, so yeah, so that's great, Deb. I mean, I love the fact that you're doing a stained glass thing. So Marie Curry, I don't know if you remember Sherry Curry from the Runaways, her sister Marie did some music with her, but now she does, this is interesting, she does guitars, but she does them not to play, as model pieces.
Oh, okay.
Pieces that, you know, like have different pieces of like fish on it and stuff, and they're very, very beautiful.
Right.
And she's
I have a guitar without the top that I'm going to do that on at some point.
Oh, so you're going to do the same thing?
I'm going to do the stained glass thing. Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be beautiful.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that was me, something coming through. Sorry.
Oh, well, I'm pretty much done. If you want to add anything to that, let your husband know. You said Cowboys in the Campfire.
Yeah.
Yeah, let him know about Hamilton Radio. And like I said, we hosted the Harlem Book Fair this year because they couldn't do it in New York. They couldn't do it there. So we did it virtually with Tommy Davison from Living Color and Saturday Night Live. He did it virtually with us, and that went well. We did a 2-day event with him. Hopefully maybe next year. I'm not saying if this happens again, if this continues, but if it does, they have a place to do it. We're always welcoming all new places and new people to us, and just trying to, you know, stay alive here.
They're doing Chip and Tommy are doing a thing that Willie Nelson and his sons, you know, the Promise Real are involved in.
Right.
And I forget who else is a part of it, but they've pre-recorded. It's going to be like a stream of pre-recorded, you know, and again, so this is a whole new way to experience music, you know, live performed in a studio kind of music with no audience around. But again, like I said, I think there's going to be a whole lot more of that creativity of like, okay, how do we do this? How do we get the music out there to people?
Oh, the interesting thing too about that is I saw a performance by Chicago with Robert Lamb and, you know, a couple of the other guys, some guys in it, but it's so hard. You got to understand, it's so hard to do the editing because everybody's got a different Wi-Fi signal. Everybody comes in at a different beat, a different time, and then editing all that into one little song. It's tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to making it sound just like, you know, they're there live where they're all separate places.
Right. Well, I think that's something else that I love editing audio. I love, like, in a radio studio, the Vox Pro is like my favorite instrument. I love editing audio, but I think a lot of us are going to be honing our skills with learning how to edit Zoom, like we're doing right here, and all the different video stuff too. So I'm actually looking forward to gaining a few new skills, because I think we're all going to be forced to actually learn more, how to do that.
Right. How about MTV? Did you watch MTV as
Yeah, I was in Chicago when MTV started, and I remember I was working at Showtime Entertainment before I started working at the radio station there, and they were like, this fad, this like videos, who wants to watch videos of music? I'm like, hello, you just watch this. This is going to be something, and after a while, they're like, yeah, you were kind of right. I mean, they weren't taken seriously, by other industries at first. It's like, yeah, flash in the pan. But of course, it became, as you said, very influential, to those of us who were, it's so influential for the bands too, like for ZZ.
Yes.
I mean,
it sold the singles, it sold the albums.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny because now a good friend of mine up here in upstate New York, he was like one of the higher ups at MTV. So he tells me a lot of, stories occasionally about how it was in those heady early days for them.
Well, I've talked to Jimmy Deal, and he was on WPLJ. That's a rival station here in New York. And he's told me many, many times about the people that would come in, that would talk about their videos, and talk about how the music has evolved into the video, or the video actually kicked off the music for the album as a promotional thing. So they used it for both, and it was work.
Because before that, there were bands
who were doing videos. There was nothing there.
But they were doing videos, but they didn't have an outlet for it.
Right.
I mean, they were seen by very few people. To have them all, and that gave the record companies obviously a whole new way to promote their bands. Some who maybe the music wasn't that great, but visually, they could do all these fine little mini movies, these little scenarios.
Yeah, and I mean, to see Jim Morrison with the Doors, that was it. Just, even if you see one track or the whole concert, I mean, just an amazing. I mean, it takes you back like you were right there in the 60s.
Yeah.
And I don't think that if music videos weren't there, I don't think anything would have been enhanced. I mean, look at Duran Duran with Hungry Like the Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
That video shot him straight up. I mean,
but luckily,
cars. I mean, you go on and on, group after group after group.
Luckily for us, video did not kill the radio star, though. So
it did not. The Buggles were wrong.
Yeah, we could coexist. Yes.
And I'm actually friends with John Payne. He was the original, not the original, but one of the ones that took over after John Wetton left. And Greg Lake came back, and then Greg Lake left, and John Payne took over for the last 10 albums. So John played with all the greats, Steve Howe, everybody that was in the band Asia. Of course, Carl Palmer was in Asia. But the band itself, is still running around right now without John Wetton. And he's still running, calling it John Payne's Asia. So, and by the way, Steve Walsh was with him for a while, and so was Lou Gramm. They go on tour as, and now you know this, Deb, they go on tour as the band, but it's just the one person from the band.
Right.
Because everybody else is either not in the band or they're not there, away or whatever. Yeah, and I understand that's respect,
Yeah. Well, some band people who have the rights to the name of the band, they want to keep that name alive. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of a lot of people claiming to like have the rights to the name or using the name, or somebody got the name by a fluke or whatever, the Guess Who for one, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the instinct of wanting to keep the name of a band alive.
No, and listen, like this one, Jeff Lynne's ELO. I mean, it was ELO when all the original members were in ELO, and of course, after they disbanded, I think in '86, that they wanted to keep the name alive, but they used ELO Part 2.
Oh, I remember there was so much contention going on.
Oh my God.
Because I hosted a lot of shows that the offshoot band did, and a lot of times they were being pulled down, legally, or shut down because you can't use this name. And they had to keep like orchestra, they had to call themselves a lot of different things. And it was sad too. I mean, I am thrilled for Jeff Lynne's success, and his comeback tours a couple of years ago and everything. and I'm very impressed, with what he does. But it was really sad to see that him and then the rest of the band, that they had all these, that
But
they,
it's not just his band. I mean,
I don't know, it's a
we
lot.
can
Yeah,
talk about a lot of bands like that that have actually disbanded for whatever. I mean, life gets in the way.
yeah.
You have kids, you have a life, and here's the thing I'll tell you too. I was actually playing a trumpet years ago, and I played bass for a while. I was actually asked to be in the Tonight Show band, and I thought it was a fluke. I thought the guy was lying to me, and he's like, "No, I really think you're good. You could be great in the Tonight Show band." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." I was a kid, so I found out that he was actually telling me the truth, and I passed up a great career.
My friend used to be in the David Letterman band, the world's most dangerous band. Hiram Bullock, he was a guitar player for
Okay,
20
cool.
years. Yeah, so that was a pretty sweet gig for him.
Oh my God, Deb, I could talk to you all day long. I do have another interview with somebody else as a spiritual guy, but I want to thank you so much for this time. I mean, you brought back so many memories. Hearing your voice brought back a lot of memories, and just talking about these things. I mean, I could, like I said, I could go on all day long. There's never
Well, thank you, Gene. It was nice of you to think of me to touch base. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. If you need us for any promotion, if you're going to be doing your thing or anything like that, or want to promote something from MGK, or 102.9, like I told Andre, just hit me up. I'll be more than glad to do it.
I will let you know. Thank you for that, Gene.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I appreciate that.
All righty. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.